when I first got out of jail, like in 89, the end of 89. I didn't want to go back to jail. I wanted to do something with myself.
Snoop Dogg came up from the mud, dodged death, faced a murder charge, and lost loved ones left and right, but still rose to become a straight-up icon in the rap game. Let's rewind and see how Calvin Broadus Jr. went from hustling on the block to staring down a life sentence in an LA courtroom. Born on October 20th, 1971 at Long Beach Community Hospital, Calvin Cortazar Broadus Jr.
It was cool because it wasn't too much violence. It was, you know, all my homeboys, we played football, basketball, we were in that sports or either going to school. But then as we got older, a lot of the homies started getting caught up and gangs started to form, and some of us started going.
Didn't exactly have a smooth start. His pops, Vernell Varnado, a Vietnam vet and mail carrier, dipped out just 3 months after he was born and took off to Detroit. His mom, Beverly Lynn Tate, tried to build something solid again, marrying Calvin Cortazar Broadus Sr., but that didn't last long either. By the time little Snoop was 4, that marriage was already in the dirt. From there, his mom held it down like a true soldier, working multiple gigs to keep her boys fed and out of trouble on the east side of Long Beach, one of the roughest hoods in Cali back then. The 70s and 80s hit that area hard. Factories were closing, money was disappearing, and soon, the crack era was about to explode through the city like a storm. Young Snoop wasn't the type to sit back. He was out there grinding early, selling candy door to door, tossing newspapers, and bagging groceries just to help his mom keep the lights on.
I got out of jail like in 89, the end of 89. I didn't want to go back to jail. I wanted to do something with myself. And I just, you know, started becoming dedicated to it, being a student to it, started making tapes and, you know, leaving all the other madness alone on the streets and being more dedicated to rap.
But Beverly wasn't just about survival. She made sure her boy had soul in his heart. A devoted Baptist who sang in the choir at Golgotha Trinity Baptist Church, she had little Calvin singing in church and playing piano before he even hit kindergarten. She filled the house with gospel, old school R&B, and soul, the kind of sound that would shape Snoop's whole vibe later on. And that nickname, Snoopy, that came straight from his mom too. She thought he looked like the cartoon dog from Peanuts and was always glued to that show. Wild how a cute name like that would one day belong to one of the coldest rappers alive. By 6th grade, Snoop was already catching eyes, or rather, ears. He'd be in the hallways rapping so hard that crowds would form so big, the principal thought a fight was about to pop off. He was sharp on the field too, playing receiver and defensive back with real scholarship potential, and still showing up at church every Sunday.
Like I said, when we was making tapes in the back, me and my homeboys, Dre's little brother was my DJ at the time being, and he was always telling me, man, you need to rap for Dre. And I was like, I know I ain't ready for them yet. They had put Straight Outta Compton out, and I was like, I ain't even on their level yet. So we just went ahead and kept.
But no matter how much talent or hope he had, the streets had a grip. East Long Beach in the late 80s was a war zone. Gangs, cops, and drugs everywhere. Around 15 or 16, Snoop got linked with the Rollin' 20s neighborhood Crips. He said before it wasn't some wild initiation. When you grow up in Crip territory, your homie's already in it. For him, it wasn't about fame or fear. It was about family, protection, and survival in a place where legit opportunities barely existed. Looking back, Snoop's been real about how the vibe shifted as he and his boys grew up. From little homies playing ball on crack courts to young men getting caught up in the system. By his late teens and early 20s, Snoop was deep in that trap life. He was out on the block moving weight, pushing cocaine, and chasing that fast cash. But the more money came in, the more heat followed from rivals in the law. Cops were lurking, enemies were plotting, and one wrong move could have ended everything. From around 1989 into 1990, Snoop stayed getting hit with charges. Possession, intent to distribute, you name it. One of those cases in 1990 landed him in Los Angeles County's Wayside Maximum Security Prison for about 6 months. Locked down behind them bars, Snoop had time to think. When he got out, he made a decision. No more chasing the streets, he was going all in on music. Music became his escape, his mission, his ticket out. Back in high school, he'd already linked up with his step-cousin Warren G and his church buddy Nathaniel Nate Dogg Hale, a dude with a voice smooth enough to stop traffic. The three of them formed the group 213 and started cooking up tracks that carried that slick, laid-back G-funk sound inspired by legends like George Clinton and the pioneers of early West Coast funk.
True question. What was that feeling, man? Because there's a lot of young cats out here that think the street life is all that. I remember everybody seen it when you was walking the court when you was a young cat. You going in there, you and Suge and them. What was that feeling, man? Can you describe that feeling to these young cats? It wasn't.
It wasn't nice. It wasn't.
We talking about murder was the case.
When you fighting for your life, when you fighting a murder case and you in the judicial system, first of all, the system designed to beat you.
Then came the moment that changed everything. In 1991, Warren G was at a party where Dr. Dre happened to be chilling. Warren slid one of their demos to Dre, and Dre was instantly hooked. That move opened the door for Snoop to jump on Dre's track Deep Cover in 1992, and boom, the world got his first taste of that iconic draw and smooth flow. Before that, Snoop and the homies had been recording out the back of a local record store, hustling to get noticed. Dre's younger brother had even been telling Snoop to get his music to Dre for a while, but Snoop wasn't trying to rush it. He wanted to be ready when his shot came, and when it did, he didn't miss. By 1993, Snoop was about to drop Doggy Style, a debut that would explode as the fastest-selling rap album of all time. He was just 21, already standing at the edge of superstardom when his whole world flipped overnight. On August 25th, 1993, shots tore through the quiet of his LA apartment complex. And just like that, everything he'd worked for was hanging by a thread. A man named Philip Woldemarian, 20 years old and allegedly connected to the Buy Yourself hustlers, had long-standing beef with Snoop's circle. Word around was that Woldemarian and his crew had been following Snoop's Jeep.
I know how to carry myself. I didn't know how to act because I wasn't never in a position like that. Normally, when I went to court, I would just take the deal. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't have money for a lawyer. I didn't have...
Yeah, that was me. I was there.
Right. So I didn't have none of that. So this is the first time I ever had a...
Tossing threats, flashing burners, and waiting for the right moment to strike. That night, it all went down near Snoop's spot in the Palms area of West LA. Snoop was behind the wheel of his black Jeep Cherokee, his bodyguard McKinley Lee riding shotgun, and his homie Sean Abrams in the back. They spotted Woldemarian walking through a nearby park, and things got tense fast. Words were exchanged, tempers flared, and in a split second, Lee fired from inside the ride. Woldemarian tried to run, but got hit in the back and lower body, collapsing right there in the park, gone before help could reach him. No weapon was found on him. Within hours, LAPD put out an APB and started hunting hard for Snoop. Instead of hiding, Snoop pulled up with his lawyers and turned himself in like a man. Both he and Lee were hit with first-degree murder charges, the kind that could mean life in prison or even the death penalty. Imagine that. Just months after making history, he was facing losing it all before it even began. The trial kicked off in late 1995. Jury selection started that November, and by January 96, opening statements were in full swing. The whole thing went down inside LA's Superior Court, with Judge Paul Flynn presiding over one of the most talked about cases in hip-hop history. The prosecution came swinging, trying to paint Snoop as some high-ranking Crip who ordered a hit out of revenge. They even used his own music against him, quoting lyrics from Murder Was the Case, like it was a confession. They wanted the jury to see a gang leader, not a young artist trying to survive. This was the first time Snoop ever had serious legal firepower behind him. Before this, he'd been taking whatever plea deal came his way because he couldn't afford a real fight. But this time was different. His defense team came stacked with heavy hitters. Johnny L. Cochran Jr., the same lawyer who just got OJ off, along with David Kenner and Donald Reed. These weren't your average attorneys. These were courtroom assassins who knew how to flip a case upside down. They went all in on the self-defense angle, saying that Philip Woldemarian and his crew had been harassing and threatening Snoop's people for weeks before the shooting.
My murder case, if it wasn't for him, I don't know what I would have did, because he was professional enough to know that you need a lawyer, you gotta get a defense team, you gotta do this, don't say a word.
How much did your lawyer cost?
Man, we spent about $10 million on that.
Damn. Just to get you out. He spent $10 million cash.
At least, because the case went on for 3 years.
Say what you want about Suge Knight, Trip say, dude. But when it came time to protect his artist, he didn't play around. He dropped around $10 million to put together one of the most elite legal teams the rap world had ever seen. The trial dragged on for 3 long years, and during that time, the defense pulled off moves the court system had never seen before. They even put together a full video reenactment of the shooting, something unheard of back then, to show the jury exactly how it all went down. By February 20th, 1996, the jury finally went into deliberation. 4 tense days passed. People thought they'd never reach a decision. But on February 21st, the verdict came in. not guilty on all murder charges for both Snoop and McKinley Lee. The jury couldn't agree on the voluntary manslaughter charge, so the DA dropped it later. When the decision hit, the courtroom erupted. Snoop was free. Jurors later said they believed the self-defense claim and didn't trust how the cops or prosecutors handled things. The case had holes all over it. But even with that win, the cost was brutal, between $5 and $10 million in legal fees, plus emotional scars that ran deep. Snoop went through it heavy during that time, under house arrest, constantly getting death threats, and leaning hard on weed to keep calm.
Time that video reenactments was introduced in court, so we had to reenact what had actually happened through a video that my attorney was willing to found a way to put together, so it was like a reenactment, like you see now when you watch those shows, the first 48 and all that. You see them we was the first ones.
He's admitted he used to pray every single night, scared that one wrong move could mean the needle. But through that fear came growth. He found faith, learned patience, and realized that life could be snatched away any second, so he had to cherish every breath. After walking out that courtroom a free man, Snoop made a major shift. He started moving away from that gangster image and put more peace into his music. When he dropped Thaw Dog Father in '96, fans could already feel the change. He wasn't just rapping about surviving the streets anymore, he was talking about living beyond them. He'd made it through what so many of his peers couldn't, but survival came with a price. He had to watch people around him fall one by one. The mid-'90s was a dark time for hip-hop. The East Coast versus West Coast beef was tearing the culture apart, and the media was eating it up. Bad Boy Records and Death Row were at war, throwing shots on records, in interviews, and even in the streets. In the studio, Snoop and Pac had straight-up magic. Their chemistry was unreal, pure fire every time they hit the booth. Pac pushed Snoop to dig deeper, to go harder on tracks for All Eyes on Me and the Death Row compilations. Together, they cooked up timeless bangers like two of America's Most Wanted and Got My Mind Made Up. Snoop always held Pac in the highest regard. He saw him as an equal, maybe even a level above. And truth be told, Snoop was the one who told Suge Knight, "We need Pac with us." He wanted him on Death Row from the start. But by mid-'96, the energy started shifting. Tension was creeping in fast. Pac was moving different, getting paranoid, and demanding that everyone at the label choose sides in the East versus West beef. Snoop, fresh off beating his murder case and trying to stay out of trouble, wasn't trying to jump headfirst into another war. He wanted peace, not another bullet with his name on it. Things started to spiral out of control. Ever since Pac got shot at Quad Studios in New York back in '94, he'd been carrying that pain and suspicion with him everywhere. He started pointing fingers at people who had nothing to do with it. And once he joined Death Row, that fire only burned hotter. The label's rough reputation and Suge Knight's aggressive way of doing business just made the whole situation explode even more.
Is it possible for you to kind of map out a future for yourself, or are you taking it like as it comes at the moment?
I gotta always have a plan, you know what I'm saying, for the future, but I like to take it day by day because nobody's promised tomorrow.
Then came September 7th, 1996, the night that shook hip-hop to its core. After the Tyson fight in Vegas, Pac was caught in a drive-by shooting, hit multiple times in a black BMW. Snoop wasn't there that night. He'd stayed back in LA, but when he got the news, his heart dropped. Pac fought for 6 long days before passing away on September 13th, 1996, only 25 years old. Snoop rushed to Vegas to see him in the ICU, and what he saw broke him. He's described seeing Pac swollen, hooked up to tubes, lifeless. Snoop said it crushed his soul realizing his brother wasn't coming back. That kind of pain doesn't fade. It leaves a scar you carry forever. And just when hip-hop was still mourning, tragedy hit again. On March 9th, 1997, Christopher Wallace, the notorious B.I.G., was gunned down in L.A. after leaving a Vibe magazine party. The hit went down eerily similar to Pac's. A drive-by, same city, same setup, still unsolved to this day. Even though Snoop wasn't involved, the loss hit him hard. Both Pac and Biggie, two giants, two voices that defined a generation, gone within 6 months of each other. The rap beef had turned into real bloodshed, and it broke something inside the culture. Snoop later said, "When Biggie died, that's when the spirit of hip-hop died too." Meanwhile, Death Row Records was collapsing from the inside. After Pac's death, the label started crumbling. Money was disappearing, artists weren't getting paid, and Suge's intimidation tactics had everybody on edge. The empire that once ruled the West Coast was now falling apart piece by piece. Snoop found himself in the middle of the chaos, creative beef, business drama, and real fear for his safety. He's been open about how bad it got, saying he truly feared for his life staying under Suge's control. But still, he never denied Suga's role in his rise. He gives him props for teaching him that boss mentality and pushing him to chase greatness. By 1998, Snoop had had enough. He bought his way out of his death row contract, paying somewhere between $10 and $15 million, and made a major move to No Limit Records with Master P. That decision changed everything. He's even said, "That move is the reason I'm still breathing." When Nate Dogg passed, Snoop made sure the world knew how special he was. At the 2011 BET Awards, he led the tribute and called Nate irreplaceable. Every word came from the heart. In later interviews, Snoop even connected Nate's health struggles to the same medical problems that would later hit his own family. It was like the pain never stopped knocking. The game had already taken so many of his people, but the hardest losses were still ahead. And this time, they would hit his home directly. By the 2000s and into the 2000s, Snoop finally found something he hadn't had in years: peace and stability. After surviving chaos, courtrooms, and street wars, he locked back in with his high school sweetheart, Shante Broadus. The two tied the knot in June 1997 and became the heart of his world. They hit a rough patch and briefly split in 2004, but love won out. They reunited and built an unbreakable bond. Together, they raised a beautiful family: sons Cord and Cordell, daughter Corey, plus Snoop's older son Julian from another relationship. As the 2000s rolled in, the Broadus family started to expand even more. Grandbabies were being born, the next generation stepping in, but along with joy came heartbreak. In 2011, Snoop lost his uncle Jerry Wesley Carter to heart failure. It wasn't a headline loss like the others, but it was another painful reminder of how health struggles seemed to follow his bloodline. Then came the tragedy that shattered everyone: the loss of Snoop's grandson, Kai Love Broadus. Born September 15, 2019, to Snoop's eldest son, Cord, and his girlfriend Jessica Kaiser, Little Kai, came into the world fighting for his life. Just 10 days later, on September 25, 2019, he passed away at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. The family kept details private, but Cord shared a heartbreaking video, holding Kai in the hospital, whispering his goodbyes. Snoop honored his grandson with a quiet but powerful post, a black and white photo of Kai with the caption, "Kai Love 9/15/19 to 25/19 until we meet again." That moment marked the first time Snoop ever had to face losing a baby from his own bloodline, and it changed him forever. Then came the 2020s, and with them, even more heartbreak. The heaviest blow hit on October 24th, 2021, when Snoop's beloved mother, Beverly Lynn Tate, passed away at 70 years old after battling health complications for months. That loss broke him to his core. Beverly wasn't just his mom, she was his foundation. She raised him through poverty, kept his faith alive, and stood by him through every trial, headline, and fame storm. Snoop called losing her the toughest thing I've ever been through. He's talked openly about breaking down at her gravesite, letting tears flow in public, showing the world that even the dog father has moments when he's not okay. Those raw, emotional moments of mourning became part of his healing, proof that strength sometimes looks like letting yourself fall apart. But the pain didn't stop there. Early 2024 hit Snoop and his family like a storm. On January 18th, 2024, his youngest daughter, Corey Broadus, only 24 years old, suffered a severe stroke while getting ready for her wedding. From her hospital bed, she posted on Instagram saying, "I'm only 24. What did I do in my past to deserve all this?" Corey had been battling lupus since she was just 6 years old, and doctors linked the stroke to that condition, made worse by stress and exhaustion. The news crushed Snoop, but he didn't leave her side. He posted prayers, sent love, and stayed locked in on his daughter's recovery. By mid-2024, Corey had made an incredible comeback, strong enough to walk down the aisle and call the stroke a wake-up call. It was another reminder of how fragile life could be, even for someone who seemed untouchable. But before the family could even breathe again, tragedy struck once more. Just weeks later, in February 2024, Snoop lost his half-brother Thomas Bing Worthington Jr., another devastating hit that reminded him just how much pain he's carried behind the fame and the smiles. Through it all, Snoop kept standing tall, using his platform to show love, honor his family, and remind the world that behind the smoke, the fame, and the music, he's still a son, a brother, a husband, a father, and a man who's seen life test him in every way possible. Snoop's world got hit with another gut punch when his half-brother Thomas Bing Worthington Jr. passed away suddenly at just 44 years old. Bing wasn't just family, he was Snoop's tour manager, business partner, and one of his closest confidants. They shared the same mother, and his loss left a hole no fame or fortune could fill. The cause of death was never made public, but the timing made it even harder. Snoop lost his brother just months after burying his mom, while still watching his daughter fight for her life in the hospital. He called 2024 one of the hardest years of his entire life. To stay grounded, he leaned heavy on therapy and his family, choosing healing over hiding. Through all the heartbreak, Snoop kept finding new ways to keep going, turning his pain into purpose and his trauma into something that could help others. From the trenches to the top, the story of Snoop Dogg isn't just about surviving, it's about evolving. Through poverty, gang life, a murder trial, lost friends, and family heartbreaks, he never stopped transforming. The same man who once faced a life sentence now stands as a global icon, a rapper, businessman, and living legend. Snoop flipped his pain into power, building empires out of ashes. He became more than just a rapper. He's a brand. Cannabis lines, TV shows with Martha Stewart, Olympic commentary in 2024, and ownership of Death Row Records since 2022. Owning Death Row wasn't just a business move, it was symbolic. The label that once nearly destroyed him was now under his control, and he's been cleaning up its image and pushing it into new territories nobody ever imagined. That same unstoppable work ethic, it goes way back to when he was a kid selling candy door to door, throwing newspapers at sunrise, and running the offense as quarterback on the field. Hustle wasn't new to him, it's in his DNA. These days, Snoop's been real about getting help for his mental health. He's talked openly about the therapy that's helped him deal with childhood trauma, the pressure of fame, the guilt of surviving when so many of his homies didn't, and the pain of losing so many family members. He's been hitting therapy once a week for 5 years straight. That's growth right there. But what really shows Snoop's heart is how he gives back. His Snoop Youth Football League, launched in 2005, has gone way beyond what anybody expected. It's not just about raising athletes, it's about raising leaders. Some of his players have gone on to the NFL, but even more of them have gone on to become strong men and women making moves in every field. He even started Snoop Youth Special Stars, a program for kids with special needs, something he says means even more to him than seeing one of his players make the pros. That's real legacy work right there. Snoop's stage game evolved too. He credits Charlie Wilson from the Gap Band for schooling him on how to rock a crowd like a pro during the Lollapalooza tour. Charlie showed him how to control the stage, set up a perfect set list, and move like a performer who owns every second of it. And then there's his wild but beautiful friendship with Martha Stewart. Who saw that coming? The two built a genuine connection that turned into a business powerhouse. From TV shows to cooking collabs to a real bond that proves Snoop can bridge any world he steps into. Growing up and becoming a father changed everything for him. It made him want to live differently. He said being a dad made him want to make it home safe, stay grounded, and be there for his kids. Now, as a grandfather, he moves with even more care. Softer, wiser, more protective, and with a heart full of gratitude instead of just survival. At the end of the day, the tragic fate of Snoop Dogg isn't that he took losses, it's that he survived every single one of them. He outlasted the streets, the system, the hate, and even his own demons. Every loss carved something out of him. And every time he filled that space with something stronger: music, family, business, and community. The same man who once sat in an LA courtroom facing the death penalty now owns the label that once nearly killed his career. The kid who used to sell tapes on his bike now funds youth leagues and sends kids to the NFL. The artist who watched Pac flatline in a Vegas hospital now mentors the next generation of rappers trying to find their way. His life is proof that pain doesn't define you. How you rise from it does. What could have been a tragedy became one of hip-hop's most legendary comeback stories. Snoop Dogg didn't just make it, he made history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into hip-hop's wildest legends. Keep the love alive, and check out one of the videos on your screen right now for more amazing stories. See you in the next one.